Hey peoples, this is another movie review of The King. As always, I want to say thank you for listening. That really means a lot to me. But before I get to the review, I do want to reply to a YouTube comment. Well, it's multiple YouTube comments of the same comment, which is, you should start a podcast. I really appreciate that, guys. And actually, I do have a podcast. It's called The Real in Real Pod. That's REELINREALPOD. It is a movie-based podcast, but it's pretty much nonsensical, and we're using our imaginations. And the premise is basically that we take something from a movie like Spider-Man, and then we pose the question, what if Spider-Man was in the real world? It's very random. It's very fun. Check it out if you want. That podcast is actually going on hiatus soon / possibly ending. I think the last episode is Christmas Day, so enjoy that. But it's going on hiatus because it's a 2-person podcast, and I am moving soon. And this type of podcast really benefits for people being in the same room versus doing it over Skype. But go check it out. Again, it's Real in Real Pod, REELINREALPOD. Via your suggestions, I might start a solo podcast. I don't know what it could possibly be. I'm sure it'll be movie based. Maybe y'all can give me some suggestions. But moving on to the review. The King is a Netflix movie, and simply this movie is about a prince becoming king and trying to fill the shoes of his father and become a better ruler over his kingdom. And that's the movie. So I thought really long and hard about how to explain how I felt about this movie, and this is the best example I could come up with. So sometimes when you hear a song and the song's good, everything sounds right, it's a good chorus, it's good lyrics, it's a good hook, everything flows right, the music sounds great, all of that is solid. But you won't really listen to it over and over again, so you don't buy it. I'm using an example where you actually buy music because I buy music. I don't stream it because I can't comprehend renting music. It just doesn't make sense to me, but that's another conversation for another day. But anyway, so yes, I still buy music, but that's what this feels like. This movie is solid and good, but I know I wouldn't rewatch it. I know I'll probably forget it in maybe a couple of weeks. And I don't see myself suggesting it to people, which kind of sucks because this is actually a good movie. It's just something missing. I don't know how to explain it because I like the story. The visuals look really good. I really like the environment they're in. It has great acting. I like the ending. I like the characters, but something's missing. There's just a spark missing in this movie, and it's hard for me to put my finger on what it is. But anyway, my biggest fear when starting to watch this movie was the pace. Because when you're watching movies in this time period, they're pretty much slow and mundane, and this movie is 2 hours. I don't want to say it felt like 2 hours because it only slowed down for maybe a portion of the film that started around the 55 minute mark. But pretty much something is always happening, so you don't get bored. There's always an intensity to it, and the storyline does keep you engaged. Like I said before, the acting is really good. I loved every single character. Everyone brings it. Every single person is solid in this movie. I really like the prince, but my favorite person was Joel Edgerton's character, or Egerton, however you pronounce his name. He's pretty much the prince's right-hand man or guy he hangs out with before he becomes the king. You found out a little bit about his history, that he used to be a warrior, but that's pretty much it. But I really liked him as a character, and I'm not the biggest fan of prequels, but I would have watched a whole prequel movie on his life because it just seems fascinating. I wish this movie took more of a direction where it focused more on their friendship, but it separates from that character because we're following the prince and his whole change into becoming a king. The only character that didn't really make sense to me, and this leans into the negative, is the one they start the movie off with. I don't know what his name is, I apologize, but he's opposed to the king and certain things that the king is doing. But he's the first character you see when the movie starts, and you think he's going to be very important, but he's really not. He gets taken out of the storyline very quickly. Usually when you start off a movie, you want to start off by showing us something or someone important, and he ended up not being that whatsoever. But back to the positives, I really enjoyed the fighting and brutality in this movie. I don't know if this style of fighting is accurate at this time period. I'm not doubting it or questioning it, I just don't know. This fighting is nowhere near stylistic. There's no finesse whatsoever in it. It's people with armor on and they're just clashing into each other. Even in a one-on-one battle, it's just men running at each other and hitting each other and trying to fight and survive. There's no fancy sword swinging or sidestepping each other like it's a fancy dance. There's nothing like that. It's just straight, I'm trying to survive. I'm going to do anything I can to kill you so I can live. But there is a negative side to that, and I'll just go into my negatives now. A lot of movies will use different fighting styles in order to distinguish the two characters. While one person might be more of a finesse fighter and the other person is more raw. When you have men just running at each other in full armor and no one's distinguishing the way they fight, it all just looks the same. There is a battle in this movie and you can't tell who's who. They do have a couple of characters with their helmets off so you can tell, oh okay, that's Joel Edgerton, that's the prince, got it. But everyone else, I couldn't tell who was winning. I honestly didn't know who was who. I just saw men clashing into each other. I don't know how they figured out who was who because it was muddy, so I guess maybe the helmet shape. I have absolutely no idea, but I couldn't tell what was going on during that battle. Another negative is that I had to turn the subtitles on a couple of times. They do mumble a few times in this movie and I couldn't understand what was being said. I have a pretty great sound system, so everything's blasting straight at my ears. I can hear people breathe in movies, so the fact that I couldn't hear their dialogue was an issue. And the last negative is kind of confusing because I don't know if it was supposed to be a negative. There is comedy in this movie and I don't know if it was on purpose. So there's a priest or a holy figure with a lisp. That was super distracting and funny. There are moments where the army is traveling and the soldiers are carrying the priest. That made me laugh too. I'm pretty sure that's accurate of what took place at that time. It's just ridiculous to see grown men being carried by other grown men. And lastly, the antagonist of the film, or one of the antagonists of the film, because there are a few of them throughout this. But Robert Pattinson plays a French prince in this movie, and he's the antagonist to King Henry, the main character of this film. The problem is, he seems more like a cartoon character than a real person. Even when they have a one-on-one battle and he comes out in full armor, he starts slipping around in the mud. It was so comical and I was confused because I'm like, is this supposed to be this way? Am I supposed to laugh at this because I'm laughing at this? But it's just odd that they made his character so goofy. I don't understand why they did that. But yeah, I don't understand the comedy, intentional or not. It's in there, and yeah. But anyway, before I wrap this up, there were a few random things that I wanted to mention. The poor kids in this movie. The kids are at the war grounds. The kids are seeing people get murdered, chopped off heads, stabbed in the head, stabbed in the back, choked out, all this stuff. I'm like, geez, why are these children at this war ground? Why are these children in all of these situations? These poor kids. Also, how are people styling their hair in this time period? I really want to know because people had curls and they were bouncy and it had body and I'm like, how are they doing this? When did product get invented so people could have fancy hairstyles? I was just wondering that throughout the movie. But that's it. Like I said, this is a really good, solid movie. It is well made. I did like it while I was watching it, but I know I'll forget it and it's not one I'll suggest to people. But anyway, that's all peoples. As always, thank you for listening. Please like, thumbs up, subscribe, comment, love the comments. Thank you to everyone on YouTube commenting. I really appreciate it. Please continue to have a great day. God bless. I'll talk to you tomorrow.